For improvement. Patti, you ran a campaign. Donald Trump thinks he can make a play in some of these states. I mean, a Democrat, I guess we can say, really hasn't had a lot of competition in some of these states in decades. Should Hillary Clinton or whomever the Democratic nominee be nervous?
Well, no, and it's really for all of the reasons that Kevin just said. And just to sort of amplify what he said in terms of Hispanic voters, Donald Trump does not only have a huge deficit, but he's also inspiring Hispanics to register to vote, and he's also inspiring people to become naturalized citizens if they're eligible, just for the opportunity to vote against him. So I think in places like California, it's going to crucify Donald Trump. I don't think he has a chance at all.
Went, and that was just one of them. Where was that point-by-point rebuttal? You didn't hear it from him last night.
Well, I think he very clearly laid out his contrast to Hillary Clinton in his own foreign policy speech, but Donald Trump's not going to let Hillary Clinton set the terms. That's essentially what he'd be doing if he gave a point-by-point rebuttal. It looked like he was on defense, and there are really fair, substantive contrasts between them. I think those will come out. She's been wrong on virtually every single foreign policy decision. I challenge anyone who supports her to bring up one successful thing she's done. There's really nothing. The Middle East is on fire, and that's because of Hillary Clinton. So you will see those come out.
Do you think is that smart? I mean, you could hear that probably coming from the other side if the attacks went that way. We're not going to let him control the narrative. That's what Kayleigh's saying. We're not going to let Trump's not going to let Hillary Clinton decide the grounds of this fight.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I thought yesterday's speech by Hillary Clinton was the best she's given in her campaign thus far. She was strong, she was substantive, she was presidential, and she was comfortable with what she was delivering. But the most significant thing, I think, is, you know, for the last couple of weeks, there have been a lot of stories written that the Clinton campaign really hasn't figured out how they're going to go after Donald Trump because he's so unpredictable and so volatile. Right. I think yesterday they proved that they've figured it out.
But Patti, do you think she can sustain that? I mean, it was a bruising attack. Can you sustain that?
But she went after him using his own words. She quoted him directly throughout. And then she contrasted those quotes with her own experience, her own qualifications, her own vision, and she did it with humor. And she did it with ease. And I think it was very, very effective.
But on an earlier tweet, when you want to amplify an endorsement, you don't unveil it in the Janesville Gazette. What do you think, Patti, as an outsider?
Well, David's absolutely right. I mean, Wisconsin, for crying out loud, is a battleground state. He could have gone to Wisconsin with Donald Trump. He could have had a big rally. He could have, you know, rallied the troops, had him meet with, Wisconsin elected officials that could help him in the general election. But no, he did an op-ed. Look, he had to do it. He was the only person in the Republican leadership who had not yet endorsed him. And frankly, because of Donald Trump's, volatile candidacy, Republicans are looking at potentially not only losing the White House, but losing the Senate. And that's a big deal. And I don't think Republican leaders want to be blamed for that happening. So they're gonna endorse him.
One thing, though, that Republicans have going for them, and Donald Trump has going for him, is he now has Republican leaders and most everyone getting behind him, while Hillary Clinton is still fending off a primary. And now you've got these talks going on in the Senate, as Manu Raja is reporting, of Democratic leaders trying to figure out a way to get Bernie Sanders to see the writing on the wall.
Look, Hillary's going to be the nominee, and when she's the nominee, you're going to have Barack Obama campaigning for her vigorously. You're going to have Senator Warren campaigning for her vigorously. You're going to have Bernie Sanders campaigning for her vigorously, and Donald Trump is going to have an op-ed.
But when that starts, that's important. If it starts June 8th or after the convention.
I think that these few weeks where they're still fighting out the nomination is going to get washed away once she's the nominee and she's got all these endorsements and they're out there campaigning.
The ballot box. And for that, I salute Bernie Sanders.
You know, losing is hard. Losing a presidential election is excruciating, and I know it's really hard. And there are stages to it, right? First there's denial, then there's anger, then there's grief, and then you come along to acceptance. And I think that Bernie Sanders supporters are in between denial and anger right now. But they're going to come around. I mean, back in 2008, the Pumas, as you recall, David, were pretty angry at losing when Hillary lost. And even when I went to go work for Obama, after she had conceded and said, we're all going to be together now, we're going to support our nominee, I mean, I got called a traitor. I mean, it was high you know, emotions. But in the end, we all came together, and that's what's going to happen this time
I do
around.
think this is a little.
You look on when you're in school, you have those placemats with all the presidents there. For obviously centuries, it was just white men, and then you have Barack Obama there now, and you think that now school kids might grow up, and it could be a black man there and a woman there, or Donald Trump, who would also in some ways be an historic figure as well.
And I also want to say it's not just young women; it's young men. I have a daughter and a son, and this is just as important for him to be able to know and to think that girls can grow up to be anything they want to be as long as they set their sights to it and they work hard enough for it. It's just as important for boys.
I think.
Patty, talking about the polls.
I agree with
polls.
Tim.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Thanks, Patty.
Patty, looking at the polls, they look good for Hillary Clinton right now. I'm sure she would like to talk about, especially the battleground state polls. But what's not good is continued conversation about emails and the email controversy. FBI notes from her interview with FBI agents they are expected to be going to Capitol Hill soon. It seems that conversation is taking a toll on at least one person close to Hillary Clinton, and that is Bill Clinton. Listen to this.
Wait a minute. That's it. It's not true. The FBI director said when he testified before Congress, he had to amend his previous day's statement that she had never received any emails marked classified. They saw two little notes with a C on it. This is the biggest load of bull I ever heard, that were about telephone calls that she needed to make. And the State Department typically puts a little C on it to discourage people from discussing it in public. Does that sound threatening to the national security to you?
Our reporter MJ Lee was there, and she said that he went out of his way to take that question about why should we trust her if she lied about her emails, and he went out of his way to kind of to go into that in-depth explanation. Yes, that is what Bill Clinton is known to do sometimes, but when you're explaining it, you're still explaining away something that they don't want to talk anymore about. Patty, how is this helping?
Well, look, I think Bill Clinton is one of the greatest politicians of our time, or anyone's time, frankly. Except when it comes to defending his wife. You know, it's very personal, and he gets very passionate about it and very emotional about it, and he's her husband, right? But look, on the trust issue, I think Hillary Clinton had a fantastic convention. You know, it was a two-tier convention. She had, so many speakers talk about how trustworthy she is to fight for the American people, to fight for the middle class. And then she also had a bunch of speakers talking about just how erratic and risky
Patty, that
Donald
was 3
Trump
weeks
is.
ago now.
Right, and Donald Trump has
proven
proven that he is indeed reckless and erratic. And Hillary Clinton is out on the stump. And look at her numbers. Her trust numbers have moved, by double digits. So I think, the FBI will release these notes, and it will say that, she didn't lie to the FBI. And again, once again, investigation after investigation, maybe this time we could move on off the emails.
I'm guessing that's probably a no, but we will see.
So, Donald Trump is going to go very negative. We just saw more evidence of that with that ad, right? So a lot of Democrats, Patty, are worried that this kind of negativity will kind of suppress the Democratic vote. Voters will see these ads and say, I'm just going to stay home. Is that a concern?
Look, I think we know what Donald Trump's strategy is right now, is that's to go very, very negative on Hillary Clinton and really appeal to his base. But that's not a winning strategy for him. He has to expand his base. He has to appeal to women. He has to appeal to minority voters, and he's not going to do that in the next 29 days by putting up ads like this. I also think that the Clinton campaign has invested enormous amount of resources in their GOTV effort in all of the battleground states. Early voting begins today in many of the states, and they're working very hard. And in terms of the enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton, I think in the last two debates, she really sort of closed that enthusiasm gap for her voters. So I think there's no real need for Democrats to worry in terms of GOTV turnout.
These things pass. I remember 4 years ago seeing an ad from the Republican National Committee saying that the only problem was that everybody wanted President Obama to succeed, but alas, he had failed. Well, no, a lot of us didn't want President Obama's agenda to succeed because we disagreed with it. But they didn't want to go down that road. They never do. They never want to go after the other side, and yet the other side was out there saying Mitt Romney killed a steel worker's wife and all of this kind of thing. I mean, they play hardball.
No, I totally get it, except that President Obama's approval ratings are at 55% at the moment.
Right.
So, but Patty, go ahead, last word.
I was going to say, I do agree it takes a lot of nerve to put an ad up like that, but it's not effective, Jeffrey. My friend, I hate to disagree with you. It will not be effective in getting people out to vote, the people that he needs to vote.
For him.
Patty?
I'll be curious to see what Donald Trump's actual goal is tonight. Is it to win the presidency and to broaden his base, as we've all talked about here today? Or is it to, lay the groundwork for what could be a very brutal loss? The system is rigged, the media is in the tank for Hillary. I want to see what the goal is.
All right, thanks one and all. We are counting down to the final debate. We're just hours away from it on CNN.
We're about 35 minutes away from the start of the final debate. Let's talk a little bit about expectations and what viewers should watch for. Patty, we haven't heard from you. What do you think viewers should be looking for, particularly in the beginning, the opening of the debate?
Well, I know everyone's going to look and see if they're going to shake hands, but I don't really care about that. I think Hillary has to do a few things. I think she needs to come prepared to answer some really difficult questions about her speeches to Wall Street, about the emails, about the FBI quid pro quo, and she's got to do it without looking defensive, because if she's not going to get it from Donald Trump, if he's not, disciplined enough to go at her on that, she's definitely going to get it from Chris Wallace. I think she needs to go high when he goes low, exactly what she did at the last debate. Show a lot of dignity like she did at the last debate. And I think she needs to, what's gotten lost here, because Donald Trump has taken all the oxygen out of this election, is her positive case for her presidency. She's been in public life for 30 years. She's a former U.S. Senator. She's a former U.S. Secretary of State. She is a former First Lady.
I have no
She's
doubt.
got a lot to offer.
I have no doubt we'll hear that she's been in public life for 30 years. I think we're going to hear that from Donald Trump. I'm not sure that's a selling point for Trump supporters.